Thanks, everybody. Thanks for making it out here this afternoon. So, as we said, I work for Brooks Bell. Brooks Bell's been a really solid partner with Telium for the last 3 years. So, that began just with learning about the tag management. It's moved into using Audience Stream, and now moving into using Audience Stream to actually not only inform, but help run our A/B testing programs. So we work with some great partners besides Telium. A couple of them you'll hear me mention during the presentation today, such as Toys R Us, American Girl. We work with some great companies, and we feel really lucky to do so. So this presentation is about the movement from A/B testing to A/B personalization. And A/B personalization, it sounds like a little bit of, kind of that just pointless jumble of words, but we want to make sure that we're not forgetting anything that we've done with testing over the last decade. And we want to make sure that we're taking all those learnings that we've had, all the processes that we've come up with, and make sure that we apply them as we move toward personalization. So like I said, A/B testing has really dominated the landscape for about the last 10 years. Not every company is doing it. Not every company is doing it to the same level. But everybody heard about it. Everybody understood that this was the most appropriate way to measure, and that was the important thing. As time has gone on, the big 15, 20% wins that some people were seeing, they're not as common. We're getting to a point now where we're having to run tests longer to look for smaller wins that are site-wide. And that leads us into the natural conversation about segmented analysis. Segmented analysis, we're really just hoping leads our next test. But segmented analysis can also go further and help us define what we personalize. So segmentation, these are opportunities that we've observed, but generally we found them after we, after we did analysis. So when you're doing that post hoc, you can't act on it. You've got to make sure you've got that next A/B test ready to go. It took you testing on a smaller population. You weren't as efficient. You were always looking for things after the fact. And then we got into this conversation also of how many is too many. I'm very thrilled for Pizza Hut of South Korea, but 17,000 segments, that's great. I'm very happy for them, but I find it extremely unlikely that they're actually feeding 17,000 different experiences. And that's where we want to get to today, is this conversation of the difference between personalizing, well, it's part of the conversation, the difference between personalizing, thinking of one-to-one, but also just learning about personalized behaviors that we can act on. So like I said, we actually need to be defining what personalization is. We need to say to ourselves, can it really be done? And hopefully by the time that we're done with this 15, 20 minutes, we'll have a good conversation started about how to do personalization profitably without being intimidated and overwhelmed by what's actually going on. So personalization can take a few different forms. Personalization, the first ideas of personalization came in segmenting. And then we would deliver different experiences to different segments, and we called that the one-to-most. That idea of, we've got a really big segment, we can hit them. We should optimize our whole site, we're going to do that. We didn't break that down too much further. We might do, as you'll see in a second, a few different small segments like new returning, consider that a beginning of personalization, but not very effective, but better than nothing. One to few, we believe that this is harder, but this is actually where most programs should be. We believe that with proper data science, with proper strategy, we actually believe that most companies can get to this idea, where you're having an experience that hits a small but valuable segment of your population. A personalized experience for them, and you might have 8, 20, depending on how many are actually valuable to you. One-to-one, I put impossible question mark. When we hear personalization, this idea of one-to-one is a natural thing. But one-to-one personalization, we can say it, we can think it, we can mean it. But I was talking at lunch with somebody and I was like, even if you do this to the best of your ability, the number of personalized experiences is still going to be limited by the number of permutations you've got of your creative, the number of permutations you've got of those copy changes. So if you don't have this unlimited bank of experiences, you can't deliver an unlimited number of experiences to an unlimited number of people. So one-to-few, actually, this idea of approaching personalization with a one-to-few makes you actually think about what you're doing before you do it, and not just hoping that this black box that you have no idea what it's actually doing is going to somehow magically deliver the right experience and create that experience. We're not there yet. So hopefully we can give you a few steps to actually think about how to do one-to-few and to do it well. So the first step that we want to make sure that we promote here is audience discovery. So audience discovery, this idea of sharing ownership with different parts of your organization. That could be online, offline, could be bringing in data scientists into the fold, but really getting that idea of let everybody contribute to the audiences that we're trying to investigate and really discover what is going to be the most valuable. So we definitely want to start with data. Obviously, I'm an analyst. I'm going to say we start with data. So I think we should be looking at behavioral predictors, really thinking about why people are doing things, looking at the things that people do before they actually convert. And I think this is also a great opportunity to understand those behavioral predictors that our retail marketers that are offline have been trying to understand for a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades. Let everybody come to the table, make everybody feel a part of the team, and then we can actually test it and investigate. So when we do this, we can bring in data science techniques. We can do clustering. We can do other appropriate data mining techniques to make data-informed decisions that are the best. So this is an example of just taking a really simple clothing retailer idea, that you could have male and female, formal and casual, and you could potentially do a one-to-most experience for those 4 groups. But when you actually do some data science with this, you can see that each one of those dots represents an actual visitor, or I think in this actual case it was visit, but they represent visitors that observe the same traits. They have the same behaviors. Not every single one of them is necessarily valuable, though. One of those clusters might actually be people that bounced, people that had a 3% order rate, but if they ordered formal female clothes. So we actually have to investigate how we actually go forward with that. So then we bring in our teams and investigate what did those behaviors actually lead to. And this is the idea of going one-to-few, where we take those groups and we don't just say that they were formal, they were actually shopping for formal tops. And we could potentially help them, if they exhibited those behaviors, we could help them accomplish their goal faster. By understanding their goal, we can test to that, we can personalize to that. So we think that this is an example, just real simple example, of how you could actually take this a step further, beyond just this idea of new returning, male, female. The second step, I apologize for the spacing there, we want to shift thinking from the visit to the journey. We've heard that a lot today over the last 48 hours with Audience Stream. We believe that this ability to actually track people online, offline, to be able to work with their behaviors that they did in the store 2 years ago in a catalog, stitch that together. We believe that those things have really changed the game. And like I said, a tool like Audience Stream can really help connect that. We also want to shift our thinking to information about the person and not the computer. So that's another idea of Audience Stream, is really understanding things that we couldn't understand when we only looked at things that we got out of our Adobe Analytics reports about their number of page views, their time on site, things like that. Now we can actually understand more and more, connect our tags, do all those things. This helps us understand long-term behavior. It is definitely my opinion and the opinion of everybody on our analytics team that we have to understand long-term behavior when we actually get into this idea of personalization. Not just that they entered on the homepage, not just that they entered through a natural search. That might be part of it. They natural searched for a little black dress. That might be part of the story. But if they just bought a little black dress 2 weeks ago, maybe they're not actually predictive. Maybe you can save money on selling AdWords or online advertisements if you know that specific types of people are not actually likely to convert at all. So one example that I really feel was a good one about this, and I want to give a shout out to, he's actually speaking tomorrow, Michael Vanderhoof at Toys R Us. I work with Toys R Us. I'm lucky enough to have worked with them for about 2 years. And I didn't want to go too in-depth, but I wanted to say that we did a great POC of actually connecting baby registries from people that had started the registry out in the store. We were able to capture the baby's due date in Audience Stream, feed that due date in through Test and Target, and then we were able to deliver a personalized experience to the mom after any authentication event, as you guys know who have done some Audience Stream things. But as soon as they logged into either Toys R Us or into their baby registry, we were able to say, okay, you've got a baby due in 4 weeks. It's probably time to start buying what's left on the registry. And we were able to accomplish our goals, and that provided a larger scope of a personalization program. But we also didn't lose focus on the fact that we were testing, because we tested that personalization program against a control and then ran appropriate segmentation to actually understand if the personalized experience was better over the course of different periods of the pregnancy. So we're able to take testing, personalization, really merge it into one idea. And we don't want to lose focus of the fact that we should always be testing and looking to improve what we can improve all the time. Speaking of that, pick your battles. I really think this is an important one. We need to be selecting valuable actions. And we only have, a limited amount of time in here. So I'm going to kind of go through this relatively quickly, but I think most of these presentations will be shared out anyways. But I think this idea of picking your battles and really understanding appropriate personalization and appropriate places to test. I saw this acronym. I got to give a shout out to our data scientist and his professor at North Carolina State University. They shared this with me. Love this acronym. So if we make sure that the groups that we're trying to profitably personalize are accessible, differential, actionable, measurable, and substantial, we can actually make appropriate decisions and not just listen to the highest paid person's opinion, the hippo. We need to be really listening to the data, let it inform where we test, where we personalize. So accessible, this is probably the easiest one in the last 5 years to just check mark and say yes. We've got so much information. Can we reach each group? Yes. In this age, we can reach almost any group. The tools that we've developed, our own processes, they let us reach just about any group that we can measure. We could target them. Differential, would they actually respond different? Is it necessary to show 17 different thousand pizza experiences? Or should we actually be saying, well, this group and this group, I actually want the same experience. So would they actually respond differently if exposed to a different campaign? Actionable, do you actually have the product or the creative or the dev resources to actually meet the needs of all of those groups? Measurable, can you actually measure it? At this point, this is another one of those that we could probably check off the box and say yes. We can measure almost anything online. We're so lucky to be able to do that. Substantial. This is where you get into the question, is it worth it? And so just a quick show of one visualization that you could use is when you actually break down your personalized idea, really think of some sort of hierarchical graph visualization like this that just helps you understand, where should I really focus? Well, you could start on the inside and say, if I just want to do a little bit of segmentation, I'm going to focus more energy and resources on the women. They're 85% of my revenue. But then specifically, the product owner for jeans might have a great idea, and that's actually 18% of the total population. So you've got lots of opportunity. Thinking about things hierarchically and making sure that you're prioritizing appropriately is a great way to pick your battles and not waste money. Step 4, test, measure, repeat. It's like lather, rinse, repeat. You repeat this as often as necessary. So your customers are going to evolve. Your customer that you had at your site 3 weeks ago buying that doll, if they bought that doll, probably don't need another doll. So you can't treat them and the behaviors that they had on that one as necessarily, they shouldn't be lumped forever as a doll buyer. Does that mean we feed them more dolls? Should we be testing what we actually feed them? That's the proper answer. So I think whenever we're talking about this, this repetition, this optimization, it's constant. We have to think about personalization as program, not project. If we have a personalization program that follows these steps, we're going to be profitable with it. And you can take everything that you've learned from all of those years of testing, all of the techniques, all the buy-in that you've already got, and say, we can do this. We just have to go in strategically, and we'll be profitable with it. And again, I think this just goes on and on. Telium, when we saw their product roadmap, 3 out of the last 5 years, they've introduced new products. I mean, the amount of data, the amount of opportunity, the amount of forward momentum that we have in this space is incredible. And we're getting it because of tools. We're getting it because of the great insight that we're able to give to our marketers, to our analysts, to everybody, because we're all going to be working in this together. This can't just be an analyst project. This can't just be a marketing project. So we got to keep discovering. And again, when we repeat this cycle, I think this is a great way to end the presentation, is that it's not starting over, it's optimizing for your best results. So again, discover your audiences, shift from the visit to the journey, pick your battles, do it all over again, and get that money. Thanks, everybody.